Are BMWs about to get 40% cheaper in India? What about that bottle of French wine you've been eyeing? After nearly 20 years of back-and-forth negotiations, India and the European Union have just signed what leaders are calling the mother of all deals. And trust me, whether you're a consumer, an exporter, or just someone trying to understand where India fits in the global economy, this deal is going to affect you. Let's break it down. First, let's understand the scale we are talking about. This isn't just another trade deal. This is a free trade zone covering 2 billion people. That's India's 1.4 billion plus the EU's 450 million. Together, these two economies represent 1/3 of all global trade and 1/4 of world GDP. The deal was announced on 27 January 2026 and is expected to come into force by early 2027. 20 years of negotiations. India's biggest trade deal ever. Period. Okay, let's get to what everyone actually wants to know: what happens to prices? Let's start with luxury cars. Right now, if you want to buy a BMW or Mercedes in India, you're paying a whopping 110% import duty. Under this deal, that drops to just 10% over time. We are talking potential savings of 15 to 20 lakhs on a BMW 3 Series. There's a catch though. There's a 250,000 vehicle quota per year, and mass market cars remain protected. So your Maruti isn't going anywhere. Now, wines. This is huge for enthusiasts. Duties drop from 150% to 75% immediately, then phase down to just 20%. And it's not just wine, European chocolate, pasta, biscuits. Those 50% duties? Going to zero. Your Nutella and Lindt are about to get a lot more affordable. But here's what the Indian government is really celebrating. 99.5% of Indian exports to the EU will now be duty-free. And the biggest winners? Labor-intensive sectors like textiles, leather goods, gems and jewelry, and marine products. These tariffs drop to zero on day one. Why does this matter? Because India has been losing ground to Bangladesh and Vietnam in European markets. They had better trade terms. Now, Indian exporters finally compete on a level playing field. This is massive for India's MSME sector, that's micro, small, and medium enterprises, which employs millions of workers. Think of all those textile factories in Surat, leather workshops in Kanpur, jewelry makers in Jaipur. They just got a huge boost. Now let's talk about the bigger picture. Why now? Why did India push so hard to close this deal after letting it stall for almost 2 decades? 2 words: strategic autonomy. Look at what's happening globally. You've got Trump back in office, imposing aggressive tariffs and creating massive uncertainty for Indian exports to America. You've got China, and everyone knows the risks of being too dependent on Chinese manufacturing and supply chains. Enter the European Union, a reliable partner for high-tech machinery, precision engineering, and advanced technology, without the political volatility of the US or the strategic risks of China. This deal also includes a security and defense partnership covering space, counterterrorism, and even joint military hardware development. It's not just trade, it's a full strategic alignment. The deal isn't just about goods. Services are a big deal too. The EU has opened up 144 subsectors to Indian service providers: IT, professional services, education, you name it. India has opened 102 subsectors in return. For Indian professionals, there's a new mobility framework. Students, researchers, and skilled workers will find it easier to move between India and Europe. There's even a legal gateway office being set up in India to facilitate this. But here's the real kicker for Indian IT workers: social security agreements. India secured a commitment to fast-track these with the remaining 13 EU countries over the next 5 years. What does this mean? Indian professionals working in Europe won't face double social security contributions, paying into both Indian and European systems. That's real money saved. Now, here's a tricky part of the deal: the carbon tax, or CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. The EU taxes imports based on their carbon footprint. Indian steel and aluminum exporters were worried this would kill their competitiveness. Did India get an exemption? No. Indian exporters will still have to comply with carbon tax requirements. But, and this is important, India secured what's called most favored nation protection. If the EU grants carbon concessions to any other country in the future, India automatically gets the same benefit. Plus, there's technical support to help Indian companies navigate compliance. It's not a win, but it's not a loss either. It's a safeguard. No trade deal covers everything, and both sides protected their politically sensitive sectors. India protected dairy, cereals, poultry, and sensitive agricultural products. Why? Because flooding Indian markets with cheap European dairy would devastate millions of Indian farmers. That's a political non-starter. The EU, meanwhile, protected beef, sugar, rice, milk powder, and honey. European farmers have their own lobbies, and these products were their red lines. This is how deals get done: both sides give something, both sides protect something. The art of negotiation. So how is the world reacting? PM Modi called it a blueprint for shared prosperity and a new era for India-EU relations. Pretty much what you'd expect. The US reaction is more interesting. The US Trade Representative said India came out on top and called the Europeans disappointing for not joining America's tariff initiatives against India. Translation: the US is not happy that Europe chose partnership with India over alignment with American trade policy. Back home, the opposition CBAM called it a surrender of economic interests. Also predictable, opposition parties rarely praise government deals. But here's my take: when both sides claim victory and critics complain, that's usually the sign of a balanced deal. So what's the bottom line? This isn't just about cheaper BMWs and wine, though yes, that's coming. India gains strategic trade diversification. Away from US volatility. Away from China risk. Toward a stable, wealthy, democratic partner. Indian MSMEs, textiles, leather, gems, finally get the level playing field they've been asking for against Bangladesh and Vietnam. A 2 billion person free trade zone emerges as a genuine counterweight to Chinese manufacturing dominance. And the security partnership? That adds geopolitical muscle to economic cooperation. 20 years in the making. India's biggest trade deal ever. Coming into force by early 2027. The question now is, how will you benefit from it? If you found this breakdown useful, smash that like button, subscribe for more business and geopolitics analysis, and drop a comment telling me, are you excited about cheaper European cars and wine, or are you worried about the competition for Indian farmers? I'll see you in the next one.